All right, everybody, welcome to Talkin' Ball Postgame Live with Pat Leonard here from New Orleans. The Caesars Superdome, a disappointing 26-14 Giants loss to the previously winless New Orleans Saints. Spencer Rattler gets his first win as an NFL quarterback. He was 0-10 going into this game. Kellen Moore gets his first win as an NFL head coach for the New Orleans Saints. And meanwhile, the Giants can't get out of their own way. 6 straight turnovers if you count a turnover on downs on the final possession. 5 straight giveaways. The first team to do that in the NFL in 9 years. The last team to do it was the Jets, one of the only franchises who rivals the Giants' futility year in and year out, and for the last decade plus. Jackson Dart, the optimism that he generated in the win over the Chargers last week, is now gone, not for the future of his NFL career, but as far as this season goes for the Giants and for the rookie quarterback. Today created a ton of questions and not many answers for this head coach, for this general manager, for this organization. We all talked about after last game, the Malik Neighbors situation, him being out all season. What are the Giants going to do at wide receiver? Who's going to fill those shoes? Obviously, we all knew that no one was just going to step in and be Malik. It was going to have to be a committee. But today's wide receiver production, usage, everything about it was disappointing and discouraging, not just in this game, but as far as projecting what the Giants are going to be able to do from here. Like total, the wide receivers. So I'm just talking the wide receivers, not tight ends, not running backs. The wide receivers total finished with 8 catches for 68 yards in this game. Total. 5 for 30 for Wan'Dale, 3 for 31 for Darius Slayton, 1 for 7 for Bo Collins. Jalen Hyatt was targeted 3 times for no yards, deep shots that the Saints had covered. I thought that the Giants' early plan was effective using the tight ends, Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, but the New Orleans Saints adjusted to it. And then obviously, whether it was fundamentals, whether it was a response to adversity, whatever we saw from the Giants on the field today, I felt like did not just tell us something about today's game. It told us something about maybe how the rest of this season, or at least definitely the next few weeks, could go. There's an interesting quote from Bobby Okereke. I was talking to him alone in the locker room afterwards. So I would say generally the defense had an attitude of like, we could have done a little bit better, but we weren't the reason we lost this game. And hard to disagree with that from the sense of, they only gave up 1 touchdown to the New Orleans Saints offense all day, a bunch of field goals, even though the Saints did move the ball. And then there was the fumble return on the Scataboo fumble, and that was the backbreaker early in the fourth quarter. But, Okereke took accountability, but I thought his big picture comment was interesting. He told me, their defense generated 5 turnovers. We didn't generate any as a defense. You don't create any turnovers, it's hard to win. But I think in our maturation process as a team, you're down 12 with 4 minutes left in the game. You've got to be licking your chops and believing that you're going to come back and win, because the really good teams in this league do. I thought we fought hard until the end, just got to clean up stuff execution-wise and create more turnovers on D. So what I think Bobby was saying, obviously he clarified at the end, I thought we fought hard to the end, but I think that was definitely an acknowledgement from a veteran who's seen lots of different games go lots of different ways, that as the turnovers snowballed and then once their backs got broken, quote unquote, kind of by that touchdown that put them down 12, even though there was still time left on the clock, and even though I believe after that point the defense still forced another punt, but it was just air out of the sails, right? It was that kind of feeling. And I think that was a really interesting and poignant message by him. The Giants pass rush did not record a sack in this game. New Orleans offensive game plan was to play action and move Rattler. Rattler was pretty good today. Kellen Moore, I thought, and Brandon Staley, once they got their hands around what the Giants were doing, outcoached the Giants. In the red zone, the Giants defense, though, was able to stand tall, make plays. It was a different guy every time. It was Kayvon Thibodeau, one drive. Okereke made a nice play on Kamara. Dexter Lawrence batted a pass down. So you got some playmaking from the defense once they got into the red zone, which was good to see. But obviously, the story of this game is the offense and how the heck the Giants are going to operate here. I mean, I know it's just one game, but this is the Saints team that, like, walking around the building talking to people, they're saying that there's not enough talent on this team. This is the worst team in the NFL. And those types of comments that you hear from league sources, and just that's where they are in their phase of building and development and all of that. And the Giants' inability to play competent football against this team, with what they have now available on the field, does not bode well for a schedule that includes 2 matchups with the Eagles the next 3 weeks and a road trip to Denver to face the Broncos, who came back to upset Philadelphia after basically having 3 points for most of the game, and handing the Eagles their first loss. So now you got an angry Eagles team coming into MetLife Stadium on Thursday. They've been cranky even when they've been winning. And I guess the point I was about to make, and I'm going to get to the super chats I see, and welcome everybody if you're just joining us to Talkin' Ball Postgame Live with Pat Leonard, brought to you here by MyBookie, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Boom Chaga, Mushroom Super Drink, and Sal Loretta for Men. The point I was going to make is this the best situation to keep Jackson Dart in? Because you made the move to Jackson Dart as Brian Daboll and as a Giants organization here at 0-3. Russell Wilson experiment wasn't working. You put a little bit of a charge in the team. Even Andrew Thomas said today that that Dart gives them an edge. His mobility helps, all those things. But Neighbors goes down in that first game. You push through, you win that game. But now when you watch what's on the field, you watch what is on Dart's plate and on his shoulders, and how difficult it is for Jackson Dart to carry the team the way that he needs to now. My take on that is, now I don't want to go to a JJ McCarthy situation, right? I'm not going all the way there right now. Like, if you look at the Minnesota Vikings were in a position early where you could tell JJ McCarthy was overwhelmed. He hurt his ankle, and he was not playing at a level that Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings needed him to, given what the team was around and what the expectations are. So with the injury and needing some time to step back, give him a look at the field from a different angle, different perspective, they have Carson Wentz now in the game for the Vikings, and McCarthy gets to heal. He gets to practice. He gets to stand back on the sidelines and observe, and has a fresh look. And hopefully once he comes back in, he can have a better understanding of what's expected of him, and he can execute that better. So with the Giants now, listen, Dart's a tough guy. I asked Cam Scataboo about it. Like, what do you have to tell Dart to prevent him from hanging his head? And he said, no, nothing. Like, he's a football player. Jackson will be all right. He'll bounce back. We're next game guys, next play guys, like that type of stuff. But I do think that if they don't have more weapons at Dart's disposal, and they don't have a better way to unlock offensively what they need to get in the end zone and to take pressure off of him for 4 quarters, then I do believe that this could against defenses like the Eagles and the Broncos, who are much better than the Saints defense that they just played, it could get to a point where it's overwhelming for the rookie. Like, you looked at the second half today, and I know Dart still made some plays, but like, him just dropping the ball on that fumble was not acceptable. And he and Cam Scataboo both were put in spots where they just didn't tuck the ball high enough. They both admitted that they were too loose with the ball, that they didn't take enough care of it, that they have to tuck it better. That's fundamental football. But that's what happens when you start getting hit a little bit. The pressure rises. You're playing in an extremely loud building, which even though the Saints, were lacking in fans, not filling the stadium, once the Saints got some mojo going in this game and started making some plays, it was like a tidal wave of noise. And that's what happens in these domes with fan bases like this that are proud. But, those are the kind of mistakes that you see and you expect from rookie quarterbacks. Is going to be ups and downs. And Dable has tried to head off that it's not going to be perfect. But that's where I'm going with this is I look at this and I say, what are they going to do to help the weapons and the offense around Jackson if he's staying in? And if they're not going to do anything to it, is it the best thing for him to play in this type of situation? Now, I know I was calling for Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston from Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, I had no interest in continuing to watch that. But as we all know, I felt like it should have just been Jameis Winston being the placeholder. Jackson Dart plays when he's ready, that kind of thing. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for Dart to, I'm not saying like he's not good enough to play in an NFL game, bench the kid. That's not what I'm saying. I hope I'm being clear about the context of how I'm describing this, which is that it just doesn't feel like the type of conditions that you want him playing in and growing in. Now, 2-3 years from now, you're going to look at some of these games and some of the positives that he's put on tape, like the touchdown throw he made to Theo Johnson on the Giants' second drive. By the way, the first time since 2020 that the Giants have scored touchdowns on their opening 2 drives. So you look at plays like that, you look at throws like that, and you obviously see that he belongs in this league, right? He belongs as an NFL starter if he can clean up, some of the mistakes and he can keep it going for 4 quarters. But, I do think that it's a valid question to ask, and I pose that to you guys as we get into this chat. So welcome. We got Joey B with a super chat saying, "Hey Pat, we suck again. A lot of rookie mistakes today. How many more games does Dable get before he's fired? It was a decent start and we folded." That's a great question, Joey. I get constantly criticized for talking about Brian Dable's job security and Joe Shane's job security, but you guys tell me. I don't think it's crazy. Like they're 1-4 right now. Let's say they lose to the Eagles and they go to 1-5 and you have an extra week there before the Broncos trip. Is that it for Brian Dable? Or do you see how he can handle this stretch? 2 games against the Eagles, right? Division games, a game against the Broncos. So it's like a 3 more game sample size. And it's kind of like, well, listen, if we get 1 out of these 3, Jackson Dart beat one of the NFL's like top 10 teams and we can feel good. If we get 2 out of 3, hey, our season still got something to it. If we lose all 3, coach is out, right? Like, I mean, I'm done trying to, I obviously believe that this is overdue. But, I think we should remember the context of how bad a loss to this Saints team is, and also, there's a difference between the Giants losing games when their defense lets them down and their offense is scoring points. And I mean, in general, just any team you're evaluating, right? There's a huge difference between like, if there's a game, if the Giants had lost this game, let's say 30-29, and Dart's offense was cooking and the defense just couldn't stop a nosebleed, and the Giants lose a high scoring game, then Brian Dable can stand there and tell everybody the rookie quarterback and our offense is humming. We have answers on the offensive side of the ball. We're just not getting a stop. Once we start getting stops, then we can turn this. But this is an offensive coach who selected this quarterback, drove the scouting process that shifted from Shedeur Sanders to Jackson Dart in that scouting process. And we now arrive at this position where you're losing a game. And I'm telling you, talking to the defensive players in there, like even Brian Burns was asked about not having a sack as a pass rush today. And he kind of said like, I'm going to try to be respectful in my answer to this question. And, he didn't like the premise of it. And it was clear that it was implicitly, again, like I said, defensive players like Tyler Nubin got beaten badly on that touchdown to Rashid Shaheed. They took accountability, but the defense was very much in general had an attitude of like, listen, we played well enough to win a game, and so obviously it's a team game, doesn't matter. But my point on the Dable side, Joey, is that it's worse for him for the offense to cave in like this in a loss to a previously winless Saints team than it would be for the defense to struggle, where we all know where the finger pointing would go if that was the case. NY2PA. And by the way, guys, as you see, our super chatters have their comments or questions answered first here in the chat. So if you're just joining us, if you're not familiar, first of all, you have to be a subscriber to chat. Not difficult. Just hit subscribe. I believe it takes about 5 minutes, and then it lets you add questions and comments to the queue. But if you want to ask a question or you want your comment or question answered first, please purchase a super chat or super sticker. That's a great way to support our channel. I will also remind you all, as I throw this up here, the banner, these are our codes for our sponsors. So MyBookie is for all your sports betting, your casino needs. The code there is Leonard. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, it's Talkin Ball 25 at boomchaga.com. And Hooks, Rubs, and Spices for all your tailgating. Talkin Ball. 25% discount at Boom Chaga. 15% at Hooks Rub. Also got great gear at Hooks Rub. And go to Salaretta for Men in Bergen County for all your luxury menswear and tailoring. But that's the best two ways to support our channel. We got the sponsors, and then we got our super chats. All right. Let's see. So you said, what do the Giants need to do? Start from scratch, get rid of management and coaching staff? Well, first of all, when from autocorrected to from NY2PA, that made me hesitate and gasp for air there for a second. Jake Fromm memories. What do the Giants need to do? So, I personally think NY2, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have the people that need to be hired to replace them ready to go. I definitely think this is headed down a direction where we could be looking at interim head coach Mike Kafka, finishing out the season with Jackson Dart, seeing what the Giants have, and then understanding the dynamics internally. Even though I think the Giants should go in another direction with a different general manager, wouldn't shock me if they stuck with the general manager and tried to hire another coach under him. But, I think anything would be on the table if you continue to lose. Like, this is a different situation, but look at the Baltimore Ravens right now. If they go in the tank, their defense doesn't improve. You have Lamar out for a couple of weeks. Like last season, there were murmurs and rumblings of if they didn't get something done in the playoffs at all, that Harbaugh could be on the hot seat there. That situation could go from DEFCON 3 to DEFCON 1 in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's a week-to-week league. And I know that's a cliche, but like for the Giants, it does matter if they win 5 or 6 games, even though like I can't even believe I'm saying it because this is what happens when you stick around a losing franchise too long. But like there really is a difference between the Giants winning 5 or 6 games this year and them winning 1, 2, or 3 or 4. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where the breaking point is for holy cow, this is a complete embarrassment. It's probably between 4 and 5. But that's a total guess. I mean, but that's for the general manager, right? But my point is they have a late bye, this Giants team. So if they lose their next 3 and they slip to 1-7 instead of 1-4, it's kind of like, that cements that it's another lost year, another pathetic season, another like, what are we doing here type year. And then I think everything is on the table. And then that's the way maybe the head coach doesn't last even past the midway point. Right. But in the short term, NY2, so let me address this in the short term first to answer your question. So they have the Eagles on Thursday night, some things to consider. So you had Darius Slayton left this game with a hamstring injury, had a tough game, also got banged up, and he's been kind of playing a little bit below 100%, as many guys do during the NFL season. Would not shock me if Slayton couldn't play in this game. They did have the wide receiver workout late last week. Would not surprise me if they added one of those guys for Thursday Night Football. As I reported, Samori Toure of the Green Bay Packers formerly and was on the Bears practice squad last year was one of those guys. So we could see one of those players added, although those are more like, practice squad fill in, like depth, although Toure has played in the league. I'm trying to get you guys that full list. So it was Samori Toure, Mike Woods, Raheem Jarrett, and Brandon Johnson were the receivers who worked out with them on Friday. I believe Brandon Johnson also was a guy who had played, who had played real NFL football other than, outside of just like practicing, practice squad, stuff like that. Yeah, so Brandon Johnson, 27 years old, has played for the Broncos and the Steelers. 19 catches, 284 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 2023. By the way, there were no answers from Brian Daboll on why they didn't activate a guy like little Jordan Humphrey from the practice squad for this game. Highly unusual. And like I said, even though they did try to unlock some of the other receivers late in the game, they didn't show any trust in them early with the plan either. So if you don't trust them, bring somebody else in, right? But so my point is, it wouldn't shock me if Slayton were unavailable for the Eagles game on Thursday night. So then where are you going at receiver? I do think there's going to have to be some shuffling there. Does look like Tyrone Tracy Jr. might be able to return for that game at running back. We'll see about that. He sounded optimistic about that this week. And let's see what other cleanup. Yeah, so the Giants safeties were banged up, ended up playing in this game, but obviously too many DPIs. Deonte Banks with a killer DPI to negate a Javon Holland interception. Tyler Nubin gets beat deep. So yeah, frustrating, but obviously it zeroes in on the Slayton fumble late in the second quarter, the Dart fumble, the Dart interceptions, but the Scataboo then breaks their backs early in the fourth quarter. Jermaine Illuminor, right tackle, I thought had his biggest struggles of the season in this game as well. Mark says, to me, Dart showed he doesn't have arm strength to take us to the promised land. Yeah, it's interesting, Mark, because on the one hand, I thought his throw to Theo Johnson on the second touchdown was a really good one. It was well placed. It was well thrown. It was a dart. I would call it that no matter what. And I thought, he put it only where he could get it. And then Theo Johnson did a good job of holding on as Kool-Aid McKinstry was ripping at the ball there. So I thought that was good football from the kid, from the rookie. But yes, the deep balls left something to be desired, whether it was the timing, whether it was slightly underthrown. They floated a little bit. Slayton should have caught the first one. I mean, he kind of said he actually blamed himself more for not coming back on to the flea flicker than the first one, but because he said he was kind of hand fighting with the guy before the first one. But I mean, he won the hand fighting on that first one, and the ball hit him in the hands. I know it was kind of low, but you got to catch that ball. Into says it looked like for the last 2 weeks, the first several offensive plays were off a script. They look good. Then they move away from what they did in those first 2 drives and look incompetent. What's up with the play calling? You know, what's happening into is like, this happens with a lot of teams that are working at a disadvantage, like the Giants are, just by their personnel and then also without Neighbors. You spend all week creating a plan, anticipating the other team's tendencies and trying to negate that. And also, like you saw early, they had success using the tight ends. But once the other coaching staff sees the plan that you're attacking them with, let's say you catch them off guard and it's working. Once they make that adjustment, like Daboll pointed out, that against the Saints' base defense, which typically, includes the 2 outside corners, 2 safeties, and then the down linemen and linebackers. He mentioned that they went to nickel, adding another defensive back onto the field to address that because they could see what the Giants were trying to do with the tight ends. So they got guys who could run better on the field to negate those tight ends and what they were trying. And then, to be honest, I thought in the second half and down the stretch, part of the reason the Giants were struggling and Dart was not seeing guys downfield was because they just kept stubbornly, like I thought too, watching how Darius Slayton looked like he was open and they should have hit one of those deep balls in the first half. I felt like it was coming. Like sooner or later, it was just going to hit because they were going to play the percentages and it was going to work in their favor. But what ended up happening was the Saints just ended up chasing it, keeping their eyes on, behind them and never letting the ball get over their heads. And Kafka and Dable just kind of just kept stubbornly pushing the ball downfield anyway. Like Hyatt's deep targets came late in the game when the Saints were playing back and were waiting on those throws. So like you watch those throws where it's like it's a 50-50 and Hyatt doesn't win it. It's like it's not a 50-50 because the guy couldn't get open. It's a 50-50 because the Saints were waiting for them to throw that pass because the Giants were forcing that schematically. You know what I mean? So um some creativity early, but agree, not very frustrating how they're unable to adjust. And also what's annoying is like you see at the end of the first half, Dable, like the whole team is kind of flowing towards the one tunnel to go to their locker room. And Dable turns the other way to find Shane Bowen to then start talking to him as they're walking into the locker room. And, it was at a point where it had been 14-3, but now it was 16-14 Saints going in. And you could see the head coach on the sideline losing a little bit of patience with the defensive plays they were giving up. But of course, at the end of the half, they're only trailing because of a fumble by the offense. And after those first two drives, they go punt, 5 straight turnovers, turnover on downs to end the game. So I guess the point I'm bringing up there is it always feels like there's a rush to judge and blame and find things wrong with the defense here, because as we said from the beginning of this season, that was the most likely scapegoat. But in the long run, as we see, as has been the case here now for several years, they just can't find a way to put a competent offense consistently on the field. Cruzan26 says Slayton is awful. Said this 2 weeks ago. Not a fan. I think Darius is a classic example. First of all, I know he's had some drops or plays in the past. That for his first drop today, I was stunned that he dropped that ball. I mean, he catches passes like that. That ball was just up and down. It wasn't a rocket over his head. He didn't have to contort his body much. It was weird. They did pay a lot for him, so he does need to play a lot better. But I've always viewed Darius as a good player who, like, this always happens with guys on the Giants and on other bad teams. It's like to be properly slotted on a team, Darius Slayton is a 3. If you're asking him to be more than that, then you're going to get ups and downs while being asked to be that, because, that's what he is. He's a 3. All right, let's see here. Cruzan says, not a fan of Scataboo yelling he needs a new glove. Blaming the glove instead of you not holding onto the ball was lame. Is that what he said? I actually asked him what he said there. And he said that he was, hold on, let me find the quote. He said that he was, I like to brush it off. I'm a next play guy. So he was saying that he was brushing it off. Is that not true? He said he needed a new glove. That's brutal. BL says time to clean house, fly the planes. Oh, we got a pilot in our midst. Joey B says we don't need any more sample sizes of this regime. Reset now for Dart's sake. This is insane. Mara should step away and focus on health. Time for a fresh set of eyes. God bless Mara. Yes, prayers for John Mara. And as I noted the other day, like my feeling about why they announced that John Mara was sick was that he probably was going to start taking a public step back slightly, and that people would notice. And when I saw the team come in, saw Chris Mara, saw Frank Mara, saw Tim McDonald, did not see John Mara come in. So there's a chance that that's exactly what's happening now. I agree with that point you just said about reset for Dart's sake, Joey B. That's the point I totally agree about. Again, it's about like, what position are we putting this young man in? This is why you reset before the draft last year. You don't want to put a quarterback into the middle of a mess. You want to make it a favorable spot to be, not a place where you're fighting through the BS just to be recognized and side. So Yeah. Ricardo says, Pat, can you pinpoint a player stealing money like a can you pinpoint a player stealing money like a Debo has? He's been horrible. And why are Banks and Hyatt still here? Shane should go as well. Listen, first of all, I will say this. I say this all the time, but I'll say it again. If you're focused on something other than the offense after this game, first of all, I don't know what to tell you. But that said, Ricardo, first of all, thanks for the super chat. All of you guys, thanks for the super chats. But your point is very well taken, which is you paid Paulson Adebo to be the type of corner that teams can't throw at, right? And so far through 5 games, that's not what he is. Now, like I said, I think they have a lot more problems than that. And I think the offense today, has you shaking your head, not just about the game, but about where do they go from here, both from supporting the quarterback to favorable conditions for the quarterback to how can you not try and go do something, make some kind of move here. But then again, this is what I was saying about when we discussed, we had this conversation our last Talkin' Ball Live about what should they do, who should they trade for, should they go get a receiver, and it came back to where this regime is, where this season is, what are realistic expectations. You guys heard Larry Fitzgerald on my podcast Talking Ball with Pat Leonard this past week on the YouTube page PL on NFL. If you didn't see it, take a look. But you heard Larry Fitzgerald say that you have to be honest when you're considering big moves about where your team is, and that he didn't view the Giants as a team that was close enough to contending to warrant, making some kind of crazy big trade for a guy like that. So, I thought that was totally fair. I agree. So, all right, let's see. 1 second, everybody. Hello. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. You with Saints football ops? No, I'm with the New York Daily News. I just do like a podcast after every game. Oh, my bad. We actually need to take these 4 chairs that are down here. Oh yeah. To the Saints locker room. No problem. We just grab those real quick. Of course. Sorry. Of course. No, all good. All good. Here, let me move this stuff off of here. Yeah, no problem. Stadium Ops enters the Talkin' Ball post-game live space. What do you know? All right, let's see. Peterstown says, Pat, how the hell do you lose to the Aints? Daboll must go. This is just a pure shit show. He has no control or discipline over these players. Dart's still not sliding correctly. That's on Daboll. Geez. Jackson did slide twice in the first quarter, but then later on he started kind of getting into the game and he wasn't doing it as much. Undefined says, I tried to tell people this would happen. Dan says, hey, Pat, well, at least the Giants got put in their place. Stay safe in the big queasy. A. Vex says, I hope today was a learning opportunity for Dart and Scataboo. Wide receiver room is really bad. Our secondary is undisciplined. Coach is not doing enough to have the team ready to play. Embarrassing to watch. Francis says, I just finished watching the NFL lowlights of the game. Wow, that was sad. Those fumbles hurt, then the interceptions. James says, hi, Pat. How soon do we see the planes over MetLife with signs saying clean house, John Mara? Bet it starts Thursday night. Usually don't see it for night games. So I guess the next time would be, let me double check their schedule. I believe it's a while until they play a day game at home. Their next day game at home is November 2nd against the Niners. And that's actually, I would think it usually is after the trade deadline. So yeah, either the afternoon before this night game, or you probably won't see it until November 2nd against the Niners at MetLife. Jim says, Pat, the plan was for Dart to sit and learn until he was ready, not until Daboll got desperate. Realistically, looking into your crystal ball, can we even beat the Patriots or the Bears? The only team right now that looks hopeless that the Giants would beat is the Raiders. That game is so far away, though, it's really hard to even say what either team is going to look like then. That's the only team I look at the schedule and I say, man, that team stinks, you know? Meanwhile, Indiana, Daniel Jones won 40-6 today. HAR says 100% Dable should be fired. Organization is down the rabbit hole again because of his ego and inability to instill discipline and adjustments. Predictable Giants football. Enough. Sublight says, I've never seen a team so skilled at giving wins away to their opponents as Dable's Giants. What a total turnaround from the beginning to the end of that game. Why is Bo Collins on the field, says Manzo. I would prefer any other receiver over him. Need to get closer to the bottom of what the heck happened on that slant, because you can't have a wide receiver, on a play like that where his route stops. He looks a little bit confused. His hands don't go up. McKinstry has like an unimpeded interception. Just not good enough. John says, Pat, at what point does Shane get held accountable before Dable? This roster clearly shows depth pieces are pathetic. Inside linebackers can't tackle. How are players like Collins and Hyatt on the roster? Yeah, no, I'm with you, John. I think, listen, I know Illuminor has had some games where he's been pretty good, but a game like today is a reminder that, he's supposed to be one of their better signings and acquisitions, and he did not have a good game today against a winless Saints team. Now, I know some of these Saints players, they're good players up front. Godshaw, Breezy, Cam Jordan, Granderson. But I guess my point is, even the signings that some fans consider like the better ones, I mean, if you really think about it, if you're comparing them to teams out there that are winning football games consistently, it's not the same level. Giants have too much ambition for wannabes. Let's see. Tiger says this was a joke. Jonathan, what's going on? E-Man, what's going on? Salute. John says, Hyatt only knowing go balls is embarrassing. Collins still not knowing the route tree has to be frustrating for Grow. Why wasn't little Jordan Humphrey elevated? Why weren't actual veteran receivers in free agency signed? Great questions. Dable wouldn't answer the little Jordan thing. Lack of fundamentals on this team is alarming, David, and that is coaching. Let's see. Yes, wide receivers 8 for 80, 8 for 68. Very sad, no doubt. Crazy. Hey, no Mets. We talk all NFL here. All NFL. I know there's a lot of Giants, and I'm here at the Superdome in New Orleans talking about the Giants. And that is what we are primarily doing here on Talkin' Ball with Pat Leonard post-game live after the Saints 26-14 win over the Giants. But that said, we welcome all conversation here. And the Daniel Jones conversation is directly correlated and connected to this situation. I know that Giants fans don't want to talk about Saquon anymore. They don't want to talk about Daniel anymore. But Brian Dable and what he is able or not able to do with an offense and with a quarterback, that's all directly connected to what Daniel Jones is doing now in Indianapolis. Let's see. Yeah, none of the free agents you're mentioning there, John, are guys who are going to be like significant major difference makers. But I hear what you're saying is like, you need something. You need something. Right. No more points outside of the first 2 scripted drives. Let's see. Hyatt doesn't attack the ball, says Ezeki. He just falls down and away from the ball. These mistakes should have been fixed 2 years ago. He's a bad player. Cowboys knew he sucked, yet Shane moved on from him or moved up for him. I would, listen, clearly they don't trust something or a lot of things about Jalen. I also could easily see him becoming the next guy, Darren Waller, to just go somewhere else and immediately have some success. Dan, not a fan of Scataboo. Michael says, oh man, fundamentals is so right. People are pissed at our wide receivers. No wonder the Giants were scoping the waiver wire for them. Defense still gives up critical medium to long passes. Mike says, if we fire Dable, does that hurt Dart? If we clean house, is Dart a wasted pick, as a new regime will look for their own quarterback? Well, it's just how the pros work. Like, if that were to happen, then Jackson would still have an opportunity. Like, let's say they fire Brian Dable midway through the season and let Kafka Dart go the rest of the way. You're talking about an audition for everybody at that point. So that's just the reality of the NFL. Let's see. Yes, can't turn the ball over 5 times. Yeah, that brings me to some of the quotes here. I mentioned the Bobby Okereke quote I thought was interesting. Darius Slayton said, I've got to be better. Pretty frustrated, mostly with myself, honestly. I left a player or two out there that would have put us in a position to get a lead in the game and probably given us a chance to run away with it. He said, from an accountability standpoint, I feel like I kind of started like the snowball effect of all the turnovers. About the fumbles, the other fumbles, Scataboo said, I just lost it. It got punched out. I didn't hold it tight enough, and he got a clean punch on it. And Dart said, it just fell out of my hand. I have to tuck the ball. So, again, fundamentals. Dart said about the turnovers, got to cut that ish out. And I think that starts with me being a leader. Some of those came from me, and I've got to be a better example. Dart also said when he was asked about starting the game well, he can take good from that. He said, I'm definitely not into moral victories or things like that. It's a loss. I don't really care what happened during the game. Andrew Thomas with one of the quotes of the day about the 5 straight turnovers. He said, I can't say I've ever experienced that, but that's a recipe for disaster. You're not going to win a game turning the ball over 5 times. We've got to clean that up. That's everybody. Absolute garbage on display by a once proud franchise, says Barry. Ricardo, not a fan of Okereke. And John says that Okereke and Muasau not the answer at linebacker. Meenan says Deonte Banks is a liability. He needs a pink slip. Ricardo thinks only the Jets have a worse secondary than the Giants. A2 says that Shane has constructed a very unbalanced team. The good aspects get overwritten by the bad. Hope Mara is doing better, but he has to clean house, in my opinion. Team is years away from competing as is. Yes, it is. Consistently, for anything meaningful, 100%. Aziki says, fire Dable, pull Dart, and start Jameis. John says, Vegas needs to allow me to place a bet on Deonte Banks making a pass interference every week because he has had a pass interference in every game so far. Dable was asked very pointedly why he keeps playing him, even rotating him with Flott when Flott is clearly playing better. And he just said, Deontay's doing some good stuff for us too. So Dable is all about trying to keep the players on his side. You always have to remember that. Let's see. Right. Ezeki says Dart can't learn in this situation. Mike says Broncos are good. A good coach, a quarterback we passed on, and some good draft picks turn that franchise around in 3 years, even with the big Wilson cap hit. John says Illuminor looks like he's checked out. Put in Bo and let him develop. Start trading away veterans for draft picks. Season is over. Let's see. Why fire Dable when it was the fumbles and interceptions? Well, I think the construct of this, Francis, was, I disagree with this premise. I will see. I think it's a loser's mentality that definitely something Dable was selling to them in the locker room was like, hey, we moved the ball. We just turned it over. I mean, they had 148 yards of offense in the second half in this game. Moving the ball, like the Saints at a certain point were kind of keeping everything in front of them. I think that coming out of this game acting optimistic about the way this offense looked outside of the first 2 drives, I think is silly season. I think it's ridiculous. So let's see. Fumbles and interceptions is a coaching problem. Ricardo says can't blame Dable for this game. I don't know. I don't follow that. Michael thinks Dable should be fired on Monday. This team is not prepared to play, makes way too many mistakes. Terrible Sunday for the Yanks, Giants, and Jets. Dart needs to hold the ball. Fundamentals. Coaching helps. Ezeki says you can absolutely blame Dable for this. NY says they need to hear from Coughlin like Tiki did when he came in the building and Tiki fumbled like crazy. Why is Turbo not playing over Motor, says John. Motor isn't part of the future. Trade him to a team like the Cardinals that need a running back. I'll agree with you there, John. Again, that is even though Singletary is, trading Singletary would not like deplete this team or anything like that, right? But what it would do is it would signal, similar to them benching Wilson for Dart, but in a different way. It would signal to the rest of the team like where the Giants thought the team was. Because you and I might think it's an upgrade, and it might be going to Turbo. But also remember, Singletary was the signing, the guy they gave real money to let Saquon walk away. So trading him away and then counting on Dante Miller, who they refuse to give an opportunity no matter what happens, the optics of that are bad too. Coach Firewatch is back on, says Steven. GCN says the game's all on the players. How do you overcome 3 fumbles, 2 in a row? They gave the scat man gloves after he fumbled. It's Dayball's fault. Slayton can't hold on to the ball. Dart and Cam fumbled. The noise started after the Shaheed TD, says E-Man. Yeah, and it kept rolling. Jordy says, I'm sick of this fake optimism after a lucky win. I'm not falling for it anymore. This team is a joke. Fire everyone. They always find a way to reel us back in, but not this time. Deb says, you're right, Jordy. The fans don't want to hear the truth. The team is not good, period. Need to clean house. Joe says, Pat, the game was over after the 86-yard fumble recovery for a TD, 13 points off turnovers. Throw Dayball says, I expect rookie mistakes. My question is, where is the defense? We have spent huge amount of dollars. Where is Slayton? Where is Hyatt? Yeah, I mean, listen, Slayton is paid to be they're paying Slayton to be a number 2. He's more like a number 3 on a real offense. He needs to play above that, given with Malik out, but you saw today wasn't able to do it. Hyatt, they clearly don't trust, and then they put him in predictable situations today. Didn't really have a chance to succeed. They don't seem to trust him. And where is the defense? Well, again, the defense, listen, I'm not sitting here telling you the defense played great today. That's not what I'm saying. But what I will say is that the Giants defense today only gave up 1 touchdown. Now, again, we're grading on a curve here. The Saints still move the ball pretty well throughout the day on them at times after the early going. But, you have to look at this situation and say, if the Giants defense gives up 1 touchdown in a game, should the Giants win the game? I think the answer to that is yes, right? Now, what you're right about is, and what Bobby Okereke hit on after the game was, they need to take the ball away too. And we all saw the recipe for winning games. What was it? It was get a lead, pass rush unleashes, and it's like a tidal wave. And that is another part of what happened today, which is compared to the Chargers game, the Giants today defense was not able to get home when they were up 14-3 and basically squash them. You know what I mean? But I think that was because Kellen Moore and the Saints ran a tighter, better game plan. They stayed committed to the run, even though they threw the ball a fair amount. I think the final breakdown here was, let me see. So they ran the ball. The Saints ran the ball. They ran the ball 30 times for 88 yards, and they threw the ball 30 times, 20 for 30, 225, and a touchdown. So the Giants held the Saints to 88 yards rushing, so 2.8 yards per carry total. They didn't let Taysom Hill get going. They had a good plan for him. I think maybe, it's just the disappointment is the lack of sacks and game-changing, like turnovers forced and things like that. But, I'm going to stand my ground here and say, like, if your defense only gives up 1 offensive touchdown to the other team, you should win the game. Let's see. Daboll and Shane got to go, says E-Man. D-Rock says, I can't see them firing Daboll unless he does something egregious. We got to watch the tape. We got to play better, blah, 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 says Deb. Big problem is the Giants play the Eagles on Thursday. No. This loss is horrible. Defense was AWOL. Offense just can't get it cranked. For sure, Pat, progress is pretty much invisible. How bad were the penalties today? Let me see. Total, we got 8 on the Giants for 95 yards and 7 on the Saints for 43 yards. I would guess, without counting them up right now, I would guess that most of them are on the secondary on defense. At least 4 or 5, right? Serious question. Do you think if we had AI making personnel drafting coaching decisions, it would do a better job than Dable and Shane? Yeah, I've said consistently from the beginning, Joe Shane gets treated by the national media and by people in general as if he is somebody who's been doing this for like 2 decades. And he has been learning on the fly as the Giants general manager since he got here in 2022. And I think you see the results of that on the field. E-Man says you can't have Nubin, a strong safety, covering Shaheed. E-Man, there was nothing wrong with that coverage against that play until Nubin turned inside. You actually, if you go back and watch the CBS broadcast there, you'll see Jason McCourty break down that Javon Holland's coming from the opposite side and has a beat on Shaheed if Shaheed were to keep the route going inside, like on a post. And so Nubin doesn't need to cover that other than just continue to dropping. Nubin's job is if Shaheed turns back out to the outside to the right, that's his turf. And Nubin completely abandons that. So, hard to understand. I didn't think that was the coverage. I mean, no one on the field is catching him. I think one of my friends texted me, said that was like the fastest clocked person with the ball this season. When you say defense, I hope you're talking about the front five because the secondary is terrible, says Ricardo. No, Ricardo, I'm just talking big picture. Like if you're coming out of this game saying that the defense lost the game, like you didn't watch the game. That's all I'm saying. But certainly all of the questions and comments and concerns about the penalties, letting the Saints move the ball, not forcing takeaways, like those are all valid. I'm just saying the defense isn't the reason, they lost the game. Focusing on the defense after this game to me is like, missing the point of what we just watched. It is, though, part of the big picture of, is this plan actually working? No, right? Dark can't do it alone, says Alex. Agreed. Overcome the shortfalls of an underperforming GM and head coach going for 3 years now. That's right. All right, guys. So we're going to wrap this up in a little bit, but if you have a comment or question that I haven't gotten to yet, if you want me to get to it, if I need to get to it, purchase a super chat or super sticker. We'll go about 5 to 10 more minutes. Make sure we get them all in. Let's see. Picking some out here. QDA says the Chargers win is kind of reminiscent of the Vikings playoff win. Fans needed to come back down to earth about this roster. Barb thinks Dable needs to stay till the end of the season, see what happens. It's not Dable's fault that Slayton can't catch. Let's go around the league as I give you guys a chance to punch in any super chats if you have to. We have the Houston Texans. I think I was on the right side of a lot today. The Houston Texans rolled. Oh, you know what? Actually, we have plenty of time. I don't have to jet in the next couple minutes. We have plenty of time. Never mind. I'm a little confused by my time change. I'm actually doing Damon Amendolara's YouTube live as well after we do Talkin' Ball post-game live. So looking forward to that. Let's see. Oh, there's Jared. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices says, though we lost today, I still love my Giants. Good luck to the trivia winner. Safe home, safe travels, Pat. Thank you, Jared. All right, so around the league, we have the Houston Texans was on the right side of that one, blasted the Baltimore Ravens 44-10 without Lamar Jackson. The Texans desperately needed this win. Both teams needed this game. The Houston Texans improved to 2-3 after an 0-3 start. The Ravens slipped to 1-4. Trouble in paradise there down in Baltimore. The Carolina Panthers, after basically trailing all day, climbed back in it in the second half. They were actually down 17-0 midway through the second quarter, and the Panthers come back and beat the Dolphins 27-24. So the Dolphins fall to 1-4. Panthers now 2-3. Daniel Jones and the Colts 40-6 over Pete Carroll's Raiders. Raiders, one of the worst teams in the NFL, fall to 1-4. The Colts 4-1 in the lead in that division. Jonathan Taylor with 3 touchdowns looking like an offensive player of the year candidate at the very least. The Dallas Cowboys 37, Jets 22. This was a game that I felt like was too easy to pick, and I stayed away from because I thought maybe the line was so low because the sharps knew something I didn't, and so I kind of stayed away from it. Other than just like Cowboys money line, with my bookie. By the way, the code there is Leonard at my bookie, so go get that code Leonard at my bookie. You'll get a bet back bonus. And I've seen actually a bunch of people on here start depositing recently for this new NFL season. And we're rolling on Pat's picks. Right now, my total pick record, picking every game against the spread through 4 weeks was 37, 26, and 1. And I was climbing back. I was, 4 and 8 out of 12 Pat's picks and 2 and 2 in best bets. So slowly, steadily climbing out of the hole there. But 37, 26, and 1 going into this week. And I know I definitely nailed the Texans. I believe I nailed the Panthers, the Colts, the Saints, the Cowboys. Now, first of all, Dak Prescott, I mean, if the Cowboys do anything this year, like if they actually end up in contention for the division and make the playoffs, like he could be an MVP candidate by the end of this year. 18 to 29, 237, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, no turnovers for Dak in that game. 127.4 passer rating. And Javonte Williams, 16 for 135 and a touchdown on the ground. Jake Ferguson with 2 catches for touchdowns, and George Pickens with another TD. Now the Eagles got upset. The Philadelphia Eagles lose their first game of the season to the Denver Broncos. So these are the 2 teams the Giants play next in their next 3 weeks. The Eagles fall to 4-1. The Broncos improved to 3-2. The Philadelphia Eagles jumped out to a 17-3 lead by midway through the third quarter, or early third quarter. But the Broncos then found something on offense, and they mounted back-to-back big touchdown drives. A 64-yard drive ended with a J.K. Dobbins touchdown run, and then an 11-yard touchdown pass to Evan Ingram to cap a 6-play 72-yard drive. Cortland Sutton, tough player, 8 for 99. Bo Nix, 242 and a touchdown. And on the Eagles side of things, Saquon only 30 yards rushing. He did catch a 58-yard touchdown pass. Devontae Smith with 114 receiving. A.J. Brown with 43 yards receiving after all of that drama. Jalen Hurts, 282 touchdowns. But the Eagles with only 302 yards of offense against Denver. So, trouble in paradise in Baltimore, like I said. Trouble in paradise with the Eagles right now as well. All right, we got a final. Tampa Bay 38, Seattle 35. What a game. Ibuka, 163 and a touchdown. This kid is killing it. Rashad White, 41 and 2 touchdowns. Baker, 379 and 2. Sam Darnold threw 341, 4 touchdowns. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 132 and a touch. Barner, their one tight end, had 2 touchdowns, and Charbonnet with a tutty. Wow. How many yards of offense were there in this game? 889 total yards of offense in this game. Holy cow. 38-35 Bucks. What a win for them. Detroit, my best bet of the week. Looks like they're going to cover that 35-17 over the Bengals right now, the Bungles. Everybody getting in on the action there for Detroit. If I could pick a Super Bowl team right now, I think it would be the Detroit Lions. And who knows what's going to happen with Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, although Jake Browning did get 110 yards and 2 touchdowns to Jamar Chase. So at least there's that. Looks like Washington is on the way to beating the Chargers in Los Angeles, and the Arizona Cardinals are holding on for dear life at the moment against the Tennessee Titans. Oh, my goodness. I had Bill Krosky-Merritt on my bench for a 111-yard and 2 touchdown game. My goodness. What a blunder. All right. Joe says, Pat, Seattle threw an interception with less than a minute left, leading to a winning field goal. Oh, no. Darnold. Kevin says, as a season ticket holder, it literally feels like the Giants have stolen my money for the past 10 years. plus years. No free Pepsi is going to fix this. By the way, did you guys know that the Pepsi gate is no more at MetLife Stadium? It's now the Moody's gate that started last year. John wants Slayton to be benched. I think he's going to be, he might be banged up and not play in general for this game anyway. Kevin says every time we hit rock bottom, it gets worse. Mara and Tish need to hire an outside firm to replace Shane and Dable. Last competent hire was Coughlin 20 years ago. Peterstown says, funny how every time a reporter asks Dable about his offense, he quickly turns it to how much the defense needs to do. What an ego Dable has. Guy just can't take criticism. Peterstown, I'm glad you noticed that. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills every time that happens. It even happened at halftime. He was asked about the game, and he basically said Dart's playing well, but everyone else needs to pick it up. Do I think that anybody will be traded to get something back? Maybe Kayvon Thibodeau to sell high. I mean, Thibodeau's playing well. You don't want to get rid of good players. But then again, how much money are you committing to that position group as well? That's an interesting idea. Some of you guys taking shots at some of the secondary, Noob and Phillips. Jay Snow wants OBJ. Joe says, how do they judge false starts when they do not put their hand on the ground? The linemen are always pointing at who to block, then turning to signal the quarterback. Yeah, that's a good question, Joe. I think it's, it's in the motion of the offense. Like there's a time where the offense is making checks and calls. And then it's very clear, like once you set, so it's basically has to do with once you set. So once you set, then the next movement is the false start. Steven says, sorry, Pat, don't give me Waller. He had his hand in it as well. I thought it was ridiculous the GM traded for an injury-prone player, but he lacked desire here. He lacked desire with the Raiders, and he didn't want to play in New York, and now he's succeeding. You just add him to the list. Yes, Shane was fond of Shedeur. I'm just going backwards in the chat right now. Let's see. Oh, we got Hooks, Rubs, and Spices prepping for a new product drop. Looking forward to that, Jared. That's hooksrub.com. Hooksrub.com. Use that code at hooksrub.com. Talkin' ball. Throw these banners up here again. My bookie is the place for all your sports betting. Detail Pat's picks, which I put up on social media, including on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Twitter, everywhere on Sunday mornings against the spread, fantasy sleepers and all that. My bookie, go there for WWE, UFC, NFL, as well as a great casino. And so it's my bookie. Use the code Leonard there for a bet back bonus to get in on the action on your first bet and roll today. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink is Talkin' Ball 25, boomchaga.com. Start feeling the difference. I literally, not kidding, gave it to my buddy before one of our men's basketball games last week. He's like, try it out. I had the bag there for everybody. One of the guys tried it. 2 days later, he's got another game in a different league, and he's like, I need that Boom Chaga. Do you have any more? And now he's hooked. He's on it. He's ordering it. And so it's just one more person, for him, for me, gives you a nice little boost, gets you locked in. For other people, it can lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation with its immune-boosting antioxidants. So Boom Chaga, whether it's that liquid Boom Chaga supplement that you're pouring in your coffee, water, or tea, or you can get it in the cold teas, boomchaga.com. Start feeling the difference. And like I said, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices brought to you by Jared, our diehard Giants fan. He's originally from Houston, so he brings big Texas barbecue flavor right to your tailgate in the lot, to your backyard, at your home gate, whatever it is, whether it's flat top burgers, cheesy nachos, smoked wings, brisket, which is my favorite. Brisket's my favorite. And I love those brisket shirts that he's got at hooksrub.com too. Go to hooksrub, join the flavor family. It's at hooksrub, wherever you follow on social media. Join the flavor fam, get in on the action, hooksrub.com, put in your order today. Richard says, Pat, do you write your article for the paper before or after your podcast? Before, Richard. That is my full-time salaried job. That is the newspaper that is paying for me to be here at the Superdome. That is the reason I'm in the locker room, right, in addition to doing Talkin' Ball. So I do that job first. There are some games where you notice I might say, hey, we're going to do the chat at 5:30, and we don't do it until 6:15. if that ever happens, that's because I'm still finishing work for the Daily News. So got to get that in first. Maybe there will be a day where my job evolves and it becomes like, this is the thing that I do right when the game ends, right when I come out of the locker room, and can do it earlier. And so, I continue to work at understanding what you guys want and what is required of me in my job, and kind of mixing and matching those things. So, that's how that works. All right, let's see. We got any other super chats here? Any other good questions rolling in? Yes, that Scataboo turnover was killer. Does Dex look nothing like last year? Is he fully healed? He admitted he had to do a lot to get ready for this game, even just mentally, because he was sick all week. No, he's not himself. He wasn't in football shape coming into the season with the elbow, and for whatever other reasons, I'm not quite sure. But he did have the pass breakup today, that batted down pass. He had the interception and the return last week to set them up. They should have punched it in for a touchdown. They only got a field goal. But yeah, no, he's not there yet. He's not the player that you're expecting him to be. We always get out coached in the second half of the game. Not sure how Mara doesn't see that, says A2. I think that's a very good point. Let's see. Mara should just let Daboll go now and get McCarthy or John Gruden. Defense needs to turn pressures into sacks and turnovers. Tree Squirrel thinks that the players are done with Daboll. I do. It does feel a little bit like a playing out the string situation. Watching the Giants makes me sick, says Jay Snow. Tiger says, not to be rude, but I'm still waiting on my 2 in a row win prizes. All good. Hook's rub is in the mail. Don't worry. Joe says, Pat, the Giants are on course. People thought they would start 1-4, but thought they would beat the Saints. They are on course to go 1-7. Yes, they are. It's bleak. It's dire. Guys, we need something different. We need something to turn. But we didn't see many signs of that happening or coming on the field in this game. I think what we need to do going into, Talkin' Ball Live, tomorrow night, Monday night here on our channel, PL and NFL on YouTube. Come ready with questions, suggestions, and ideas for not only for how to put a better product on the field on Thursday, but also for where do the Giants go from here? Is there a different deployment they can use to unlock certain weapons? Do they need to look to the future? And if they do, what does that mean? Do players go on the block? I think in the short term, what this team deserves from all of us is this. They deserve a chance to try to show us that this was the anomaly, even though we all understand what we're looking at when we watch this team and we watch this game and we watch them falter against the Saints. You say, I've seen this before a million times with this staff, with this team. But I think we go into Thursday, we watch what we see Thursday, and Thursday tells us a lot about not only how the next few weeks, but the rest of the season is going to go. And from there, you can gauge, because it is getting late early, right? We just looked at the calendar. We're talking about right now, it's already October 5th. By the end of this 3-game stretch here, Eagles, Broncos, Eagles, the trade deadline, the who's buying and selling, is the coach still around? All of those things are going to come into clear focus. Nameless thinks they will bounce back against the Eagles. Eagles are going to kick our butt, Scott says on Thursday night. I hope for a win, but it doesn't look better at this point. GCN says, Pat, do you email your column to the editor after the game so they can publish? I post it in the back of our site and also email it to my editors to fully package it and publish it. GCN thinks the Giants should go no huddle after the first 15 scripted plays. And Tiger says clean house. Caesar says, I think our next coach should be Gruden and put a good staff in. What do you think, Pat? People have raised the comment that his lawsuit against the league and the nature of his emails, right, creates a major problem there. I do think Gruden gets back into coaching. Question is whether it's college or pro. Talk to people who think that it's more likely that it's college in the end, while he takes this action against the NFL. But I agree that you're trying to look for, you want someone who's competent offensively. You also want somebody who has some clout and some cachet and some ability to kind of be the boss, you know? QDA says, Pat, in your opinion, is it okay for the fans to go full panic mode, or do you think this team can stack better days, or has the writing been on the wall and there's no good ending to this? QDA, I think with Malik out now, looking at this, you know, I did not see a team today that for 4 quarters is going to compete with the likes of the Eagles and the Broncos and the Niners coming up. The Saints were 0-4 for a reason. I think that the Giants are a team that is playing with very little margin for error. I've said this consistently. This is where Shane comes into play as we wrap up Talking Ball with Pat Leonard here, post-game live from Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Where Shane comes into focus, where the accountability needs to be with more than just the coach, is the Giants roster and their composition and their lack of depth puts them in positions like this where they're either not the more talented team on the field, or in a game like this where it feels like a coin flip against a winless team. And that's not a defense for the coaching staff never being able to figure out how to either keep players healthy and the training staff and keep players healthy, score points, all those things. But they just have such a small margin for error that, like, a game like this, like last game, they forced those, they forced the 2 takeaways. They have 2 interception returns down to the Chargers 3-yard line, and the pass rush is all over Justin Herbert. And still, if the Chargers had just run the ball more in the 4th quarter, LA probably wins the game. The Giants earned the win. They got there. They got the result. They got the victory. But you see in a game like this, like they face a little bit of adversity. It starts to snowball on them. They don't have an answer, No way we look good on Thursday. KT has to go. He makes the most sense money-wise, and it's time to get what we can and restart again for a 4th time, says Joey B. Joe says the Giants should hire the Notre Dame coach. Caesar says exactly that's what I'm thinking. New blood, new minds. Yeah, but he doesn't have a track record. I want somebody with a track record. I don't want like the Brian Dable first-time head coach thing. Steven says when Coughlin's reign was ending, the organization and ownership harped on a revamped up-tempo offense. We haven't had it at all. No Mets disagree, says we make 0 sense to trade Kayvon. Do you guys want a good team? Did you not see what trading good pieces does to a team? Right. You got to be careful. You don't want to get rid of good players. Jay Snow says, Pat, the moves Shane has made haven't worked out at all. Agree. Steven says, John Mara is a great man who loves this team. He just doesn't have what his father did for years, George Young. Let's see. So sad to watch this team start off 14-3 and let this lead slide. They just screwed themselves over and over. Let's see. GCN says, odd there was never going to be a good, he says, ODA, talking to a fellow commenter. There was never going to be a good ending. Pat predicted 3 wins, Saints, Raiders, and New England. Yes, I did. I stick to it. And Tree Squirrel says we need an established head coach. With that, guys, thank you so much for being here for Talking Ball post-game live with Pat Leonard here from the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. I am the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. So please check out my story in the Daily News. I will post the link right here in the chat section before I go. Also, I am going on DA Live. That's Damon Amendolara, DA Live. You'll find it retweeted on my X account. You can check me out on there. DA's fantastic, great interviewer. Maybe he'll unlock some, even better points that I dropped here on Talking Ball post game live. I doubt it, because we bring you the knowledge, the info, the information. By the way, I did ask Drew Phillips. There's my story link, by the way, if you guys want to pop that in and read it. I did ask Drew Phillips how he was doing. He said he's okay. He was grabbing his back there, kind of fell on his back, and it hurt at first, but he's okay. E-Man throws Jesse Minter into the mix. Deb says, thanks, Pat. NYOG says, thanks. Safe travels. Caesar says, good work, Pat. Thank you, Caesar. Let's see. We will talk about where they go from here Monday and then post-game Thursday. Remember, guys, tune in post-game Thursday night. If you're not here Monday night, if you don't tune into the guest podcast, although you're missing out if you don't, check me out Thursday night from MetLife Stadium after Giants Eagles. It'll be late, but I know you'll be up. Win or lose, we're all going to be up, whether you're driving home from the stadium, whether you're in the stadium still. whether you're in the parking lot, tailgating under the lights late night, wallowing in a loss or celebrating a win, whether you're at home in the backyard or on your phone or whatever it is, check me out on YouTube. PL on NFL is the handle. Talkin' Ball Postgame Live here from New Orleans, Caesars Superdome. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are the best. Thank you especially to our super chatters. Joey B checked in several times. NY2PA, Mark Sullivan, Into, Cruzan26, BL, and Ricardo. Thank you so much, guys. The support means everything to me. And thanks again to our sponsors. MyBookie, the code is Leonard for all your sports betting. Boomchaga, boomchaga.com. The code there is TalkinBall25. And Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Talkin' Ball is the code. As well as Salaretta for Men. Check out the arrivals. Had me looking fresh today. I just changed into this shirt just to keep it casual for the chat. But love you guys. Love this community. Look, GCN even says that he watches me on TV through YouTube. So you can watch anywhere. Phone, television, laptop, projector screen, whatever it is. All right, guys. Thanks so much. See you guys next time. See you on DA Live with Damon Amendolara if you guys want to check it out. See you later.